Okay, now that we have taken care of the network connectivity, let's proceed with configuring some other prerequisites like system clock synchronization and host naming convention. In network environments, it is quite important that our network hosts have their system clocks synchronized. This is especially true for heterogeneous environments like the one we are trying to set up. So the next step in the process of setting up interoperability between Windows and Linux is to check the system time and verify that both the time of the client and the server is exactly the same. This is a prerequisite for the Linux host to be able to join the Windows domain. The time on this Windows server is 1:57 a.m. Now let's check the same on the Linux host as well. And as you can notice, the time on this machine is also 1:57 a.m. So your prerequisite of time synchronization has been met. You can ensure this time synchronization by setting up tools like Network Time Protocol, or NTP, which is a networking protocol for clock synchronization between computer systems over the networks. The next step in preparing these two systems is to change the host name of the Linux system and make sure that the new host name matches the naming convention that we have adopted in this Windows domain network. In this Windows domain, we already have a few clients added which are following a certain naming convention for the host names. Let's review it now. Let's switch to the Windows Server tab and launch the Server Manager. Click on the Tools menu, and from the drop-down menu, select Active Directory Users and Computers. This Active Directory Users and Computers is a management snap-in which helps you manage all the objects registered in our Windows Active Directory. Here, let's select the Systems Organization Unit node. Under this OU, there exists two children OUs, Mac systems and Windows. These children OUs have some network hosts registered within them. For instance, here we have Windows clients named as Tetra Client 1 and Tetra Client 2. And we also have a Mac system client called Tetra Mac 1. So you see, we have a somewhat consistent naming convention for our network hosts. This is a good practice to follow. As your network grows, it will be easier to maintain and operate if all the hosts and devices on your network follow a certain consistent naming convention. Let's close this management console and switch to the Linux system. First, let's check the existing current host name that has been assigned to this Linux host. Let's execute the command hostname. This hostname command is used to show a computer's host name and domain name. It is one of the most basic of the network administrative utilities. Okay, so as you can see, this Linux host is called linuxhost.localdomain, which is the default host name assigned to Linux systems generally. Let's go ahead and change it now. For that, you will need to edit the network configuration file for CentOS. This file is located at etc/sysconfig/network. The etc/sysconfig/network file is used to specify information about the desired network configuration. Let's edit this file with the text editor. We will execute the command vim/etc/sysconfig/network. And here you can see an entry with the host name, and the default value of localhost is already specified here. Let's change it. Let's assign it a fully qualified domain name, FQDN, linux1.tetranoodle.com. And save the changes. That takes care of the host name for our Linux system. As you may know, DNS resolution plays a very important role in Windows domain networks. In this setup, we want the Linux host to be able to resolve the host name and the IP address for the Windows domain controller. For this, you'll need to specify some new entries in the network hosts file. Let's open up the hosts file with the text editor. Execute vim/etc/hosts. And here, let's add some new entries. The first one will be the Windows domain server. Type the IP address for the Windows server first, and then type the given host name and the fully qualified domain name, 192.168.1.254, tetranoodledc.tetranoodle.com. And the second entry you should add is for this particular Linux client machine itself. Let's type the IP address of the Linux host, followed by the host name and the fully qualified domain name as well. 192.168.1.16. linux1.tetranoodle.com. Now let's switch to the Windows server and make sure the host name is correct. Right-click on the Windows icon, click on System, and you can see the fully qualified domain name of this Windows server. Now let's switch to the Linux system and make sure that we have typed in this host name verbatim. Okay, looks good. Let's save and exit this text editor window. Now let's go back to work the network configuration settings and fill in some details which we skipped earlier. Right-click on the network connections icon in the system tray. From the drop-down menu, select Edit Connections. Select System ETH0 Network Adapter. Click on Edit. Switch to IPv4 Settings tab. Here, if you notice, we skipped the DNS server configuration earlier. Let's take care of that now. In this network, the Windows Domain Controller is also acting as the DNS server. So let's specify the IP address of the Windows server here in the DNS server's input field. Type in 192.168.1.254, which is the DNS server IP address. Next, in the search domains, let's specify the domain name of the Windows Active Directory domain, which is tetranoodle.com. Now, click Apply and click Close. Okay, after making all those changes, let's verify that you have configured the system correctly. First and foremost, let's verify the hostname. Execute hostname. Okay, so seems like this new hostname has not kicked in. It means that we'll need to reboot this host to ensure all the settings take effect. Before we reboot the host, let's configure the network adapter to retain its settings and connect to the network automatically after the system boots up. Go to the network connections, right-click on it, and from the drop-down menu, select Edit Connections. Select the system ETH0, click on Edit, check this Connect Automatically checkbox. Now click on Apply and click Close. Now let's reboot this Linux host. On the command line, execute the command init6 to reboot the server. Let's give this Linux host a few moments while it reboots. While it's rebooting, let's switch to the Windows server and add a DNS entry for this Linux host. Launch the Server Manager. Click Tools, and from the drop-down menu, select DNS. Here, expand the forward lookup zone, under which expand the domain tetranoodle.com node. On the right-hand side panel, right-click in the empty space, then click on New Host. A New Host dialog box pops up. Here, let's specify the host as Linux1. Since this DNS server is already integrated with our Windows Active Directory, you will notice it has already inferred the fully qualified domain name for the Linux host. Anyway, moving forward, let's specify the IP address for the Linux host, which is 192.168.1.16. Make sure to check the checkbox Create Associated Pointer Record, or PTR. This creates a pointer that maps an IP address to a host name for reverse lookups. Now click on Add Host, click on OK, click on Done. Now, as you can see on the screen, we have a new host entry we just created. Close the DNS console now. Let's get back to the Linux system. Okay, great. The system has rebooted now. Let's log in. Click on Other. Input the credentials and log in. Okay, we have successfully rebooted the system. Now, let's check the host name again. Right-click on the desktop and click on Open in Terminal menu. Here, in the new command line window, let's execute the command hostname. Okay, excellent. As you can see, the host name has been changed from localhost to linux1.tetranoodle.com.